closed session.
Ooh, you guys are so close.
Being in the
You're
open
physically so close to
session.
us.
So, hi, welcome to the, just kidding. It's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't, go ahead. Come on.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to item 1F.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second, and that would be a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. We're gonna move on to buildings and grounds. We have a green team update. And I believe this. Yeah, you want to just take it away? Hi, thanks for
So,
coming.
I'm gathering this is like an informal update, just being the committee and all, but we have some exciting updates for you on progress with the Green Schoolyard project and the application process with MMSD. And so where we are at right now, my understanding is that there have been some mention of updates along the way, that we were going to move forward with the grant itself to see where that would land with us before making any other decisions on any more movement with the project. So I believe it is loaded in the docs, and I will refer to it, but if you take a look at it, the MMSD Fresh Coast Guardians are spearheading the project, and we finalized the application and put that in, and we were not supposed to find out until the end of May if we were awarded funds, and we were notified pretty quickly that we were a go. They would like to award us about $85,000. The breakdown is in the grants, and of course Lindsay is the numbers person, and so I won't speak too much to that, but that's a really cool opportunity for our students and for our community to be able to move forward with some outdoor learning spaces. So that was exciting. I wanted to highlight just some work that we've been doing since the last time we met. And so having the STEAM class and green team and phase 1 complete, and then the prospects of continuing that work, we've had some really cool experiences in STEAM class and with green team students around looking at how could they be more of a part of the process. And designing spaces in the Green Schoolyard could not be more of a STEAM project. It incorporates all of that learning around science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And so I'm hoping you've noticed a lot of the different models that have been throughout the library over the last couple months, and maybe had a chance to look at some of the food web designs. But those are just some examples of the work that we've done in STEAM and connecting it with opportunities in the Green Schoolyard. So students analyzed some of the diagrams in front of you to look at, and the question framing it was, design a space that you would like to be in that includes green infrastructure. So how can it also support the ecosystem? So those were the two parameters for one of the projects that we did in all 3 trimesters with mostly 6th through 8th grade, but 4th and 5th graders got to design their own gardens and are continuing to do that. And also having the ability to create 3-dimensional models and apply some of those mathematical concepts along the way. 2 things that we, besides that we've been working on, like I mentioned, the food webs, those were over at the library, so helping foster other relationships in the community, having students have the opportunity to kind of show off their work, but then also apply that learning that they're having in those core classes to these bigger projects, and know that like when they're learning about ecosystems in 5th grade, it helps strengthen some of that learning that they're having in their own class, but then can apply it. They have something they can apply it to. So the food webs are really a fascinating experience with them. The kids had a lot of fun and learned a lot. And so there's probably 2 dozen of them all over the building. But that also allowed us to incorporate, you know, science content, but also some of the art concepts that they're learning, practicing in class with Malcolm. So the other project that we're currently working on is taking some of their content from social studies and science and mathematics to design their own Three Sisters gardens. So students in 4th and 5th grade have been learning about the origins of Three Sisters gardens, companion planting, and then using mathematical concepts to help apply some of that learning. So that's kind of what some of this work is. I'm just giving you some imagery of student work, but also their vision boards on what they would like to create for spaces that they would like to learn in. On top of that, we've also partnered with UWM School of Architecture and Urban Planning, and we've had undergrad and graduate students coming in to the STEAM classrooms to also help with their ideas and design process and getting out in the gardens. And so that's been a really nice partnership for not only our students, but even the UWM students. And our students had the opportunity to kind of really look at possible future opportunities for themselves in that partnership work with those UWM students. So that was a really another benefit. And those UWM students took some of the student ideas and then did digital, kind of like a SketchUp, but a more professional drafting of what exactly would it take to build some of their designs, and then looking at the dimensions, but also then helping design them to make sure that they're solid, they're secure, they're safe, and taking some of those students' models and ideas, but then doing a digital version as well. And some students were able to do some of that with SketchUp, which they were able to use some of the learning from Mr. Savajan's class as well. On top of that, let's go to the next one. Oh, if you could go back 1 second. So one of the graduate students has also been coming in, and Mr. Savajan's been sharing his workspace and during resource time in the mornings, some Green Team students, as well as some STEAM students who really wanted to kind of expand their designs, are actually now taking their designs and building them. So one of the designs that was a trimester 1 student is, and it's kind of squished in there, but it's an insect habitat. It's basically repurposing old pallets, some wood, and then manufacturing a space where students can actually observe insects or learn about what their needs are, and hopefully attract some pollinators to the garden. And so we're in the process of finishing that up, along with building out some trellises for the gardens and some other smaller projects that are doable, movable, and the kids can kind of start to get their ideas and see it actually be realized, which is really exciting for them. Yeah, if you could go to the next one. Some other ideas, and this was just kind of fun because they took what they're noticing in their own neighborhoods, what the ecosystems need for support. Yeah, the turkey gets everyone. But and taking it to the next level, like what else would support the ecosystem and would also support their learning and their social emotional well-being. Students have been looking at different studies too around the benefits of green schoolyards and how it does help with social emotional, but also cognitive and developmental benefits. And just they get so excited. They ask me every day if we're going outside, even if it's like freezing. I'm like, it's like, oh, we don't care. Which normally they would be like, no, thank you. So they really are enjoying it. So that's just kind of fun. If you would go on to the next. I met with Allison. Well, maybe it would keep them away from the parking lot if they won't, because they're here. They're here every morning and every.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're in Crestwood as well. And this, I met with Allison and Lindsay the beginning of April, and there were just some notices from students and from us, and so we collaborated on some things that we felt like we could ask for now. And just like, for example, we had that tree down, and other, like if those kinds of things happen again, if there's ways we can repurpose that, recycle and reuse within our own, that doesn't really cost us anything. It only just shows kids that when stuff like this can happen, there are more environmentally friendly ways that we can kind of deal with some of that. We talked about carving out a little section for No Mow May. It is something that is supported by the city of Glendale. They do have No Mow May, it's Mother's Day, I think is what they're calling it. So that was a nice connection. We talked about making sure that spraying of any sort of fertilizers or anything on this side of the property, especially if we're growing food, would be kind of paused while we're growing food and not really done to help. And then we're looking at building in more community events, which I think leads to the next slide. Oh, so we have some Eagle Scout projects. You might have noticed the benches out there. Ben Plum at the beginning of last summer offered his services and took an existing bench and built that out and then provided us with detailed plans on like a SketchUp version so that we could build more. The Girl Scout troop in 5th grade built several bird feeders that we are looking at then. The Boy Scouts building the trellises that would then have some of the bird feeders on top. We looked at some designs for that. And we have a former student, Nathaniel, he was just approved by the Eagle Scouts, and then we're looking at what his work can complement the existing space. And so he is looking at repurposing some of the logs to make larger benches, incorporate more native plants. And then his younger sister in 6th grade built up one of the models that is currently over there, which was the design for the Loose Park Station, which was on the updated version. And you guys do have 2 maps in front of you. One was the original concept map. And then the second one is the update of phase 2 with student ideas and designs. Students then collaborated with Green Trip Partners and Learning Landscapes to add some of their designs into the existing ideas from our former students that are now gone in high school, not gone, but in high school, they have left the building. But that way they had opportunities to work with professionals in this area. Both Hannah and the other one's name is also Hannah, zoomed in with students on multiple occasions, allowed students to present their ideas, collaborate, ask questions, and then presented their final ideas to them, which were then incorporated and updated into a more detailed plan for phase 2. So there's some really interesting opportunities for learning, and it does exhibit like how a green schoolyard can support learning for our students, but then also help support not just the turkeys, but other things that are crucial in our ecosystem.
The human turkeys.
Yeah. So we do have an event. Oh, one of the other components, yes, you can go on, is one of the parts of the project that has already been like covered from MMSD and the work that we did with Green Trip Partners and Learning Landscapes is to put together some permanent signage. Green Team students have been involved in that partnership and looking at what we would like to go on the signage, but we also want some feedback and the sign that is part of the current budget that MMSD has already covered for the work that's been done for all this is it's kind of small, it's not that big. And then we were looking at, we're waiting on quotes to see how much it would cost to size it up a little bit. There's some other examples, and if not, we'll definitely work with that. So that's an exciting way for us to be able to communicate with the community about the work that's been done, but then the features of the garden. One of the really cool things that Nathaniel has already done as part of his Eagle Scout project is created a QR code to a web page that lists the native plants that are currently in the gardens and then ones that he is planning on adding as well, and some information around that so that community members and students can just use that bit of technology to like be directly linked, and people can identify plants if they're curious about things and learn more. So and that would be a great tool in the classroom as well. So, and that would also be included on the sign that's already been shared out with the project managers from those 2 organizations, Green Trip Partners and Learning Landscapes. So we do have an event on the 13th. We've partnered with MMSD to come out, and they are doing a rain barrel giveaway for community members here in Glendale. They're also hosting a workshop as part of our annual cleanup. So this is something we do every year where we mulch and weed the existing front and side of the building. And then have opportunities to, like I said, build out some of those trellises with Boy Scouts and things of that nature. So plans will be finalized for that this weekend, and then I will communicate with Allison and Lindsay about the details around that, what that would look like for final approval. And then June 3rd, we've scheduled out just one additional day to kind of, it's early to be planting. And so making sure that we have an additional day to get seeds in the ground because it's a little cold yet. So, but lots of work to still be done, but we have looked at the existing space. We've worked on it throughout the year in STEAM class. Had some great news from MMSD wanting to help us really transform it into a really interesting learning opportunity for our students. So I think that was the last slide.
There's something about work.
Oh, yes, so Lindsay and Allison and I had the opportunity to look at 2 different hydroponic systems. We did receive one $2,000 grant, and then I have another one in with Fork Farms to try and get us our own flex farm that could be utilized in the STEAM classroom, utilized in G&T, utilized in with any of our students, and maybe partner with some local food pantries and or the senior center was one that came to mind too right away. And in helping students learn more about food production, as well as have access to some fresh produce. At Shorewood, it was awesome. They were growing tomatoes and strawberries in theirs. Typically it's used for lettuce and herbs, but we met with a teacher over there that's doing exactly what I've been envisioning doing here. So yeah, and the first thing I asked Josh when I met with him, who's the rep from Fork Farms, I did say, can we grow other stuff? And so it was nice to see that in action, for sure. Some other extensions I just want to mention briefly that are not in the slide. We are applying for additional grants and would like to look at community fundraisers moving forward to help cover costs so that it is truly a grassroots effort to create these spaces without burden on the community or the school budget as much as possible. Then I did want to add that this year for Summer Academy, I usually do a science-based class, but I'm still doing that, and we're doing a gardening class for all grades, first through going into 8th grade students, and so that's another way we can support this over the summer. I did incorporate some of that work last summer with, I did run one botany class, and the kids, they were amazing. Like I was telling Jonica, you earlier, I was like, I've never thought that kids would love weeding, and like the minute I was talking to them about, you know, different plants competing for resources in a garden, that some we want there and some we don't want in that space, and kids were making connections to working with their grandparents or their own family in a garden, and like would literally beg me to go weed every day. And I was like, that is so much fun. On top of doing other things, like we did collect monarch caterpillars, and then we also did help them out over the summer, so students got to learn about life cycle of that, and then the symbiotic relationship with their host plant, the milkweed. So there's just so many opportunities, and I could probably talk, I've already probably gone way over time, and I apologize for that. So I will be quiet, but please feel free to reach out if you have other questions.
There was no time, sorry.
Oh, I thought you did. And then there is, I worked with Hannah, but a lot of the grant application is information that explains a lot in more detail of what I've shared with you in a quick summary, but the it also kind of breaks down some of the numbers. I do have more detailed plans that are from the engineers based on that, those maps that you're seeing and diagrams that you're seeing, but I encourage take a look at the grant, because it is a nice summary of all of the information that we propose to MMSD to then be awarded.
How about we just go down the line and see if anybody has something much good.
However you would like to do that.
Yeah.
Madam President,
Madam Interim.
Yeah.
for the moment. Madam President of the moment. This is all wonderful work. And that's what you're doing. This is all very well. What I really want to do is understand ways that we can more often and more visually kind of present this to the public. And I was just looking at the webpage, you know, kind of going through and seeing if we had any pictures on the webpage. And I think that I would love to have snapshots of all the lovely green space and work that's been done on here, especially now, you know, at the end of the year. It's been helpful. I mean, people are great. I like people. We can have more than just that. I want people to see all this wonderful stuff too. It's a
So,
great environment that's being, you know, developed there. So that's my request. But it's getting exciting.
Jen, can we work on that together?
Yeah, for sure. I have
I know you do.
a ton of pictures, even from last summer all the way through. And I appreciate you saying that, because like part of, I just want to make sure that I'm moving forward in a way, because a lot of this is a learning curve for me as well. And so if we're ready to start putting more, like really boasting about this, is that opportunity. Yeah, for sure.
It's amazing.
If we're in that place, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I just want to say that I think you're a force of nature, Jenny. I just don't
Thank you.
understand how you do so much. But you know, I just love this work. I think it's grounded in educational equity and life equity. I think it's grounded in the future, because our kids need to understand their connection to nature as we face off with climate change and things that people are going to need to do, and as we adapt to a different world. So I just think it's extraordinary that you're bringing this into our schoolhouses, and 100%, 1,000, 1,000,000% support this work. I'm really into it. You know, my kids went to nature preschools. If they could have gone to outdoor schools, I would take the roofs off the schoolhouse. I love that you're getting kids outside. I just think it's everything you said about STEAM learning, everything that kids get from that perception, the sensory feedback. There's just so much equity built into it. So I'm just incredibly grateful that you're doing this.
I look forward to fostering more relationships with community members to get them learning about these things, and also connections to food. You know, when you were talking
Yeah,
about equity and things like that. It's surprising sometimes to realize how little students know about where our food comes from, or even what it is, or how long it takes to grow.
Yeah.
Miss Miracle and I are partnering too with looking at incubating some of her eggs to help talk about that process. Yeah, we just started that. So there's a lot, just so many opportunities.
And then in the biggest dream, Parkway would be part of it too. They used to have that
Yes.
garden space over there that Gina Lima used to tend, and
Yeah.
it kind of
And I've had
comes and goes
conversations.
depending on whether there's a parent. But one of the complaints, I guess it was a complaint, one of the things that I remember some years ago now, when we were doing some of this stuff, we would build these gardens, right? And building, like, we'd plant the plants and the vegetables would grow, and Gina would invite teachers to bring their students out to the gardens, and they just wouldn't.
Yeah.
They were just in their classrooms, in their four walls, and it was really a little bit of hair pulling for the parents who were volunteering, saying, we've made these extraordinary spaces. Really, just could you just bring the kids out and let them dig for some worms? I mean, there's a lot of learning in that.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? For a 5-year-old, a huge amount of
Yes.
learning and regulation and science in that process. So it's something that I'm sitting here thinking about as I hear you talk about this stuff, that it would be, in a dream world, it would start all the way back at the beginning in our school district. And
Well, and I do
advanced
love
through.
that our younger students have the opportunity here in Summer Academy, which
Yes.
is a
Yes.
big part of the growing season.
Right.
And so, yes, but I agree. And
but you
I-
can't do everything.
And no, and I am that person here, which I am, like, one of the goals, and I'm doing some summer work too, to really evaluate some of the curriculum and look at where, especially in STEAM and in grade team, can we help support and make some direct connections with the, cross-connecting those concepts
Right,
from
because
their
even like
classrooms into
the,
STEAM and into outside.
like even like the wild garden, the butterfly garden,
Yeah.
which is not just a hot mess, right?
Yeah, I know
Over
Jim
Parkway.
Beckman went back in the day, was talking to me about how they need to do a control burn with the fire department or something, because
Oh,
it's
gosh.
out of control. But that's
you know,
what you do with.
And then that's also part of the
prairies.
story of our community, right? I think about how the pandemic broke so much, but who was the mom? Karen, do you remember the mom who died of breast cancer?
That was my best friend, Kim.
Yes, she spearheaded that effort.
Yeah, and that's when Gina took it over.
Yes, and so,
Yeah.
like rebuilding that, this is part of like a long story and a long journey as we kind of push to
It's my
green.
dandelion tattoo.
I actually did not,
That
I did not start using
Yeah.
it. So, and I've been
Her
thinking
daughter and my
about
daughter
Kim.
together right now.
So I've been thinking about Kim, whose name I forgot, which is awful, but I'm thinking about Kim as you talk as well, and how this is like a long dream.
Mhm. Yeah.
That would be, I mean, for me, it's
Yeah,
just
no.
amazing to see it happen.
I agree, and that is definitely something I'd like to keep building in. It's gonna take a little time, but so far that a lot of the teachers here are really on board with making some of those connections, and taking students out, but also having opportunities to collaborate with some of the different grade level teams about, like, hey, like in 5th grade, we did organize a trip to the zoo and they took classes around ecology and ecosystems, which then supported the learning in science, supported the learning in STEAM, and then they got to go to the zoo. Students got to see a real live armadillo, and then they also, another group got to see a snake, and they did a whole class round, and it was really amazing. So, but yeah, collaborating to keep that going for sure.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Ben?
I don't think I need to add anything.
Okay.
I've worked with you, you do a good job, so well done.
I just wanted to piggyback on Andy thinking about press and PR. I hope this would be in the community newsletter that you guys are working on.
Yep.
Like, I've like maybe a press release about the winning of the grant, and then sort of mentioning the work that we're doing would be a good idea, and inviting people to I know it's soon, but the May 13th, you could even press, thinking about that and just putting it out there more could spark someone's interest to come bring a camera or just want to come and talk to you more about it. Those are my only thoughts, and thank you for spearheading this work. It's really amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And I would love recommendations and help with that. That is not my area of expertise or forte. I know I have Laura Hawks also on the green team now, and so she's been a really great collaborator too, and I can talk with her more about that. But I know that many of you already have connections. And I did do one interview once that you connected me with,
Was it the
or two actually. There was one article and then there was, so maybe we should circle back with them.
We should be blasting that out
Parkway,
on
but
the
green
green
team side, maybe get some Parkway teachers kind of, right?
That would be awesome
Like
too.
green team going over to
Yeah.
Parkway to have a conversation.
Well, we
What
would
if we
also
get
have to get them to.
Maybe. We can help brainstorm, but
That's
that's
a good.
Yeah, that's a good way to start it, but finding an opportunity, and teachers over there too. Yeah, that, I mean, like thinking about, but we can look at it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I wrote it.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for presenting.
Thank you all for allowing me to. I really appreciate it.
Can
Thanks,
move
Jen.
on to 3A, but before we do that, do you guys want to come, like, you don't have to sit back there with your backs to us, there's chair if you want to
Two
come.
chairs.
Yeah, join us and be part of the circle. Okay, well, the invitation is out.
Yeah, I'm a buggy. I got it.
No,
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Please feel free to follow up with any questions or
Just
anything.
like more. Yeah, so it's
To make sure that we're moving forward and doing it right.
I can't come to the May 13th, but I've got June 3rd on my calendar.
Oh,
It's nice to see you on my calendar. I'll be there. I can't say to how many of you I'll send.
Yeah.
Some of us.
Or if they don't need to be.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
This is less conversation. Two tables.
Get you climber.
Okay, we are moving on.
If you want,
Thank you. We're getting in the groove. All right, moving on to EduClimber, 3A.
Kelly and I are gonna take team notes a little
Okay.
bit. We're super excited to talk with you about it.
Yeah.
You've heard about this
Yeah.
multiple times, so now we're just gonna give you some visuals and give you a little more information about it. Before you start, I'm gonna pass this out.
Okay, that would be great, and I'm just gonna kind of go through and describe EduClimber because it does feel very abstract. But essentially, EduClimber is it's a virtual data warehousing system. It gives us access to whole child data. And when I say whole child data, I'm talking about academics, but right, there's so much more to our students than academics. It also gives us access to social emotional behavior, attendance, behavior incidents, and intervention. It kind of lets us see all of that in one platform, which we really like. The major benefit that we see is that it takes a lot of the heavy lifting out of looking or making data-driven decisions, because a lot of what we find ourselves doing is mining for data. Maybe somebody has concerns about a student, but in order for us to find all of the data, whether that's academic data, behavior data, attendance data, like digging through all that data, sometimes takes us a really long time. So this is a tool that gives us data at our fingertips. It also helps us to trigger, or we can set early warning system triggers within EduClimber. So we can set triggers for attendance, right? If there's a pattern of attendance, it will alert us. It can set us triggers maybe with academics or assignments that are missing for students. So it really helps us to make sure that students aren't falling through the cracks. And then, like I said, it helps us identify our needs, and then it helps us organize our interventions. We have been working really hard on providing interventions for students this school year, whether those are academic interventions, social emotional interventions, behavior interventions, but sometimes those interventions are hard to track in terms of fidelity and outcomes. And this kind of gives us an opportunity to have that data and information at our fingertips. What we really love about it is that it can drill information down to the student level, but it can also give us a grade level view, a building level view, and a district level view.
What about a classroom?
Yes,
Okay,
all the views.
okay, just checking. Okay. Of course.
That was
I
exactly
just-
what I was thinking. What about the classroom? Yeah.
Just like accidentally.
All the views.
So many views. Okay.
Okay, so I'm also, so managing academic and social emotional interventions in one place will really help us with our multi-tiered systems of support. That's a kind of a big rock thing for us as we're looking at not just what we're doing at the universal level, but what are we doing for students who need more or something a little bit different, or what do we need to be looking at for students that need even more intensive interventions. And so it's a really nice way for us to keep track of that data. And then you're going to hear me use that word fidelity, which feels like a hard word to hear, but we have to be providing interventions with fidelity, and this really helps us to ensure that that's happening across the district for the students, so that we know students are getting what they need when they need it. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, well, the data usage. What we love is that it makes the data really visual. Because some people are visual people and need to see data in different ways. It's not just for us, it's for the teachers to be able to explore data in their classroom to kind of help pinpoint, okay, what needs to be addressed, or what am I missing here, or what did the STAR assessment show? What are some strands that I can easily address? So that data visualization will be really helpful for all of our teachers, our administrators, our interventionists, for everybody.
So even like doing a common assessment or a pre-assessment, you can kind of see exactly, okay, I have this group of students that fell out on the standard, so I know I have to take this group to the teacher. So there's some really good opportunities with that, so everything can kind of flow in there, not just state and district assessments, but classroom assessments.
And then the other thing we really love about it, and this is thinking through that equity lens, is it allows us to filter the data, looking at maybe some of the areas or student subgroup populations that we want to focus on. So it might tell us, right, populations of students that are really struggling, maybe with a specific standard or with the behavior trends we're seeing, or maybe it's behavior referrals that are happening and we need to reflect on, are we over referring a certain population of students? And that will kind of help us like play with the data and look at it through those different lenses to help us be more reflective on our practices. What else am I missing?
Or all of at, we're noticing at one school at 1 o'clock, we have, 20 behavior referrals. Well, what's happening at 1 o'clock on the playground? It kind of pinpoints times and
Oh, you'll have
places.
timestamps.
Yeah, interesting times and all of that. Yeah, month.
Yeah.
All the way across, you can kind of see the trends.
Will it change like the way that behaviors or referrals are reported then now? Will it change the system at Glen Hills or Parkway?
So
Possibly.
possibly, it could pull the data from Infinite Campus, that's where
Oh.
behavior referrals are entered right now. But it could also give us other options for,
Yeah.
that's we're gonna have. to
There
find.
is an option to do it within the system, so we just have to, talk with the team on that and what makes the most sense. Right, right.
And I don't wanna I don't want to dash everybody's hopes, but I also, we are super excited about this, but I also feel like we have to be very transparent to tell you that this is a very, very heavy lift. And so even just setting up the systems to pull the data is a very heavy lift. And then, data is only as good as the data that's inputted. There's going to have to be a significant amount of training across the district.
That's the real fidelity issue.
Yeah.
Is getting clean data.
Yep, so that is going to take some time. But we know this is part of what we need to be doing in order to meet the needs of our learners, is that we have to be looking at the data. We have to be looking at it every day. It needs to be in our face, right?
I have a couple of questions. And coming off of it, where else, things I've asked too many in a row. Let me get one out. So, I mean, first off, so there's a need for this, right? So how do you identify the need and what the cost of this versus other options?
Well, currently, we've been using free versions of Google Drive and doing spreadsheets, and the amount of time for staff to do the work, hours and hours. It took Taylor
After
40
STAR
hours
testing, it was like.
to gather the information for STAR testing. So if you're looking at how many hours of work,
Okay, so it's gonna save us time to
plus
utilize.
the teachers, we would prefer them instead of, doing Google spreadsheets and all of these other pieces for data. Instead of doing that, it would be more helpful for them to be planning for students.
But we're gonna be, I mean, the research that we have right now, obviously, they're different things, but it's all kind of in-house, right? And so we're going to be taking that data and putting it into this external system. Are there other systems that you looked at? Or was that Climber like,
We looked at a couple of, this was last year, we looked at a couple other systems, but this is the one that landed the most popular with us
and
because of the visuals.
so what's the cost of this?
Say 1,000 to set it up with the trainings.
Is that something the board needs to act on to adopt this?
It's part of the curriculum budget.
Okay, so we've already,
8,000 a year.
It was 8,000 with training, so I'll have to look at the
Set up,
yearly,
yeah.
because that was the training was a big piece to it.
right, so my other question is really kind of like the amount of data security and whatnot. I mean, I'm concerned about a couple different aspects of this, right? So one, student consent and having a lot of information compiled from one place, having it be external, how can that information be used by Edge Climber? I mean, do they have a right to access that data anonymously, to compile it, for anything for their purposes? Are there any license issues?
There shouldn't be any licensing issues, because I just, when we went through this whole process with them, I did have some questions around security with them. But I would have to go back and for that specific question. I know they don't share the student information or any of those types of things.
With you?
With other companies or anything.
So they can't buy the
It's pretty
data.
standard, just about every district has some sort of dashboard like this. I mean, it's pretty.
And Leary, that
I know what you're saying,
paying
but
for
there's
this,
still
we're
security
taking
concerns.
all
Yeah.
this information, we're compiling it, we're putting it into one easy place that can be hacked. I'm not saying it's going to be, but I'm worried about data security.
Yeah. I mean, we
And by the
currently
way,
have it in
we may
somewhere
have
where it
Right,
should
it's
be
an
hacked.
open campus right now.
Yeah.
where
It's like Google.
Google Sheets or,
Should probably have bigger security. list.
And also about family members understanding that we're going to be using this and giving informed consent, before, because I think there's a difference between us compiling information using in-house. And I mean, I'm just wrestling with this because it's kind of a bold step, but there's a difference between what we do and what we have and what we're supposed to protect, and then putting it into some, offsite content. Yes, it's a tool, yes, it's supposed to be, secure, but, how do we communicate and ensure that parents are okay with that?
Was it Google Drive announce that? Like, would you consider us using Google Drive, putting our information into an external place
Well, I see it too.
and an infinite campus?
I recognize that, you know, that those are questions and probably, and I'll also acknowledge that I don't always ask those questions, but, you know, here it seems like it's something different than what we're doing already. And so I'm just curious, I mean, I don't want to, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, all tells me that maybe, you know, we should at least ask questions previously, you know, about storing. I mean, I remember when we switched to Google, you know, and we had this big, you know, big sale, you know, this big, you know, sales pitch and whatnot, in terms of going to that system. But now we're going from something that we, you know, utilize, pay for, to a different system. I guess I just want to have those kind of reassurances, you know, and just ask that question out loud. Do we need to, and how do we need to communicate that we're going to be doing this? I don't know.
I think that's a great question, and to share out exactly what, like everyone has a different role within that system. So like a classroom teacher would only be able to see students in their classroom. So there's different way, you know, we can share communication out around that. So when we're talking about security and families thinking that, you know, possibly a staff member.
I appreciate it, you know, I really do. I mean, the thing that's going through my mind is, and maybe I'm wrong too, is you have 5 or 6 pieces of information, let's say, and they're here, they're there, whatever, not necessarily in one place, you know, they're in hard files, they're whatever. It sounds to me like we're taking all this stuff, putting it together, we're putting it into one place. And so, for lack of a better way to put it, it seems a little bit big brotherish. I just want you to know what it is.
So I'm gonna send you a link in because I just looked it up, like with Illuminate, and there's information collected directly, information stored on behalf of educational organizations, how your information is protected, personal data disclosed.
Thanks.
So I'll just send you this link,
Perfect.
I would also, can I add?
so you can see that, sorry.
I would add too, I think a lot of times we are looking for data to back up like proposals that we're getting from administrators or school, like I think you and I both are definitely big on that. And so this, we may have to deal with the cons of having all that information in one place, but this is gonna be able to allow everybody to track this data, like to track where it was and to show whether what we're doing is working or not working.
The clear benefits, I mean, you've done, you know, great work, don't get me wrong, and I don't mean to suggest otherwise. I just want to hear that.
I do too.
Andy, I know this is, okay, I'm not really supposed to talk right now, but my school
No, it's
uses
all right.
a
I
system,
mean,
a similar system. And the student's name is, so like, if I'm putting in a report about math scores. Like I could pull up my dashboard right now and all it would show you is, I could pull up right now how many second graders scored in what percentage of math scores. I could filter it by race. I could filter it by when did they come to the district. I could filter it, but I can't filter it by name because that's not attached to their information. The only person who can see their name is their classroom teacher because it's not, it doesn't, the system doesn't do that. And the only reason the classroom teacher can do that is because the classroom teacher entered that information. Once it goes into the whole system, it separates that from their name. And then the only data everyone else can see is race. In our specific system is race, class, age, how they scored. I'm trying to pick up the things off the top of my head, but not, it doesn't attach to the student's name.
I was actually gonna ask about, my question was around the demographic gathering, so like how do you say, like what are those areas that we can track?
I could show, do you want me to walk through this? So maybe.
Well,
we
I
get
couldn't,
it some
I
of
can't
that?
read.
It's
No,
not-
no, like, I'm like,
All of them.
okay, I can get more specific, like, well, actually, maybe
Oh,
we
is that
would
what
know
this
those
tiny,
things
tiny
now.
one is?
Probably everything you
This-
could see in Y stash.
Yeah, it's all of
Well,
them.
why don't I show you?
So it's, oh, here it is. Here's an example.
Is that it though? Date of birth, grade, teacher,
Gender,
school, gender, and
ethnicity.
ethnicity? So you wouldn't know like
Income.
ESL or.
No, you can-
Oh, no, that's on there.
disability or-
That's on there, yeah.
Okay, okay.
We can do, and we can also add like.
You can add.
Like
Okay.
a specific color code for
Oh,
anything. So if
Okay.
we wanted to know, people with brown shoes.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
we could go
Right,
through
right.
it, we could do it by all of that if we wanted
You
to.
can add your own attributes.
You could add your
Hair
own,
color.
if you wanted to follow like a specific
Okay,
color.
cool.
or-
That's-
So do
that's-
you, so who, how, okay, so
Oh,
detail-
That was like security, that was the security issue. Sorry, but it's okay.
so the detail of these academic reports, like, okay, for STAR testing, you can get pretty detailed with that. Meaning you can look at different areas like algebra or geometry, or you can separate them, right? I guess go with numbers and logical reasoning or something like that, right? Whatever STAR defines them to be. But I know on the forward test, you can only separate by math, English, social studies, and science. So when you're talking about,
But you can do
these-
that by standard. I have a spreadsheet for that.
you can, but on WiseDash you can't, right?
No, not on my session.
But now, what, they give you like a CSV file or?
Through
Okay.
DRC, I got a CSV file where I can.
And you can
sort every
upload-
Student.
And you can upload this file to this database.
Mhm.
And so teachers then can actually look at the standard,
And do a comparison between.
because you
the two.
can't do that on WiseDash.
No, you can't.
You can only do it by subject
No,
area.
and that spreadsheet and that's new, that came out like 2 years ago, someone in Grafton created it. So it's.
But the state, whoever does the forward
The
testing,
state gives
is
us
it
the
Pearson
raw
or something?
file.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And then we put it into a spreadsheet that kind of sorts it all out, so I can see it by student and all the different standards and how it's scored in each.
So it's literally an Excel file, or what is it?
Mhm.
It's Excel.
And this takes in Excel files.
Okay,
It just has a special, it's a CVS file.
okay, and
it
so
has changes.
then you upload it every year.
Mhm.
Now, now with STAR assessment, teachers shouldn't have to manually put that in, right?
No,
You
that
can, you
automatically
also
goes.
get
There's certain things that
you
automatically.
can connect
flow.
STAR testing with this, or you have
Yeah,
to
because
download the data and then
The same
upload
part
it.
of Renaissance.
They love each other.
Oh,
In the system that we have at our school, the only thing that we have to manually upload is like our district.
Yeah.
The district things that we do, like our district testing, we have to manually upload those,
even
like,
forward,
no, like your math assessment A1, math assessment B5. Those you have to manually upload. The amount of time that takes,
Yeah.
not a big deal.
okay,
But that's the only stuff that, and then we don't actually, as teachers, we don't even do the behavioral stuff. Someone and like,
well,
there's
this,
office staff that do that, so.
or does Skyward connect to it, or is that not allowed?
I see
Or
those
it-
connect to it.
Oh, so you can just, it automatically flows in like overnight or something?
So the amount of like teacher time it takes
Yeah.
is,
That's the other big push.
which
with
is,
this.
I'm sure this is really similar to what we use, looking at what this looks like. The graphs that I get, looking at these graphs, they're super similar.
We're asking teachers, right, to be responsive to the needs of their student, and then it takes hours to like
Yeah.
literally mine the data and figure out what are the needs of my student.
Yeah, then we
what are
have
the
like,
trends in
we
my
have like
classroom?
meetings,
Yeah.
like, some of our PSCs are around these, the data that we get. So we have like PSC meetings around that data, and then, we also have like, quarterly, like whole staff meetings, like the PSCs are like broken up into like, what's your specialty? And then quarterly, like whole staff meetings, like, hey, what are we doing awesome as a district? Hey, what are some like glaring problems in this data that we need to like district-wide shake up?
Right, okay, so and teachers wouldn't be able to mine with WiseDash because you can't, you have to, so this is a plus
This
for.
is a next
Time
level.
saver.
Next
Now, okay, so then that leads me to my next question. Well, when, because teachers may not just always look at this, right? What, are you going to designate some time for them?
So
You, so like,
during-
during the math meeting, you take a look at, hey, these standards aren't being met. And so on their own, because on their own, likely they're gonna be worried about planning, because the best use of assessment for a teacher is formative assessment. Meaning that they collect data in the classroom real time and provide feedback real time, because if you don't provide that feedback, then the assessment's worthless. You do need summative assessment, you know, that's important because you have to have some sort of standard, right? But formative assessment is, with real-time feedback, is the best, and you're not going to be able to document this in EduClimber, and you shouldn't, right? Because that would just be way too much. So they need time or designated time to look at, like 30 minutes, like on a Friday or something. Like, are you guys going to provide them that time? Okay.
Not necessarily on a Friday.
Oh, no, I know.
Yes, there'll be, yeah, this is part of like the process and how we're
Okay.
rolling everything out and.
Because I mean,
this is-
something,
You gotta
something,
have it, practice it
Yeah.
and look at it.
well, likely what's gonna happen is in the data, you're gonna see statistics is very low. And that's because in every curriculum, statistics always comes last. And so if you see that, then what are you gonna do?
We have to meet as a math team,
But,
make some, you know, have some conversations about that, right?
but the idea is you would make a change then,
Right.
okay?
Okay, Ben, I think Carla has questions. Also, I
Well,
believe.
it's my turn to ask questions.
Well, do you have any more?
I think, I just want to finish the answer that she was providing me, but.
Oh, I can't remember what the question was.
So I was just asking, you know, so if you saw something like, you know, statistics were low, what would you end up doing? And so my other question was, if proficiency in math were low, what are you gonna do? Because I mean, I could show you Y-Stash right now.
We would have to drill down,
Yeah.
right, exactly on what is it, what actually is low
Yeah,
in math. And then
Okay.
how are we, you know, how are we teaching it? What instructional practices are we using?
okay,
And then, but also look at it across time too. So
Yeah.
that's another piece to this, where you can also look across time and
Okay.
see trends and stuff like that too.
okay.
So,
That's all I wanted, because like sometimes people will get the data, they'll look at the data, be like, oh, it says this, but then they don't make a change.
yeah, no, that's the whole.
So
We,
then then my last question is, what are the top 3 data points that you're gonna be looking at or focusing on next year?
district-wide, classroom-wide,
Let's do district-wide.
district-wide. I think we're gonna be looking at a whole district, so we'll be looking at attendance, we'll be looking at academic data and our SEL data. I think those are the
Okay.
big 3.
And what data points for SEL?
We have a survey that
Okay.
we'll be utilizing, and then we'll also look at, you know, within the SEL, the behavior. So I need like incident reports and all of
And
that.
each question is gonna be a row that you can pull out, so you can see which ones are low or high.
If you look, like, you kind of see like the overall, like the district sheet right here, so you can kind of see, we can set up our dashboard however we want.
Yeah.
To pull in whichever data we want to see. I really don't want to do all of this on the screen, because
Yeah.
if I roll across it, a student name may pop up
Right,
on ours. So I really don't want to do that
yeah,
in this
yeah.
meeting that's being recorded. But I can show you, like, just looking at the screen up here, you can kind of see that it can be sorted by school, by grade, by gender, by ethnicity,
sure,
disability, all different types of things. And
But-
this is just,
okay.
I'm just showing you just some of the ways that we can sort.
yeah,
But they're also, we can look district-wide at behavior data. So when are incidents happening? What month? What time of day? Where
Sure.
is it happening? So we can kind of look at that. And then we can also trend it across multiple years once we start getting some of that data in. And then that also would be true on the academics as well. We can
Yeah.
pull it down by standard, we can pull it in many different ways, proficiency levels. Report cards would be a part of that academic data too, so we can look at multiple data points.
okay,
So we're gonna dig into it,
Yeah.
but again, it's gonna take a little time
yeah.
to get all of this going.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, my last thing here is that this could be really useful for, especially for action steps with this strategic plan. Because unless we actually find something, so we're gonna look through the data, we're gonna notice something, but unless nothing's gonna happen unless we write it down and then we actually do it. So if it's something like, yeah, we need to change our instructional practices in math, have more explicit instruction, well, that's not gonna happen unless we write it down and do it. Or if we notice something in May, you know, end of May, behaviors are just out of, it's just 30% more behavior referrals. Unless we do say, hey, for those 15 days, we're gonna do this. It's not gonna happen. You guys know that, but I just wanna reiterate it because that's important. Down, I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad you asked those questions.
So, just back to you, so this is your original question.
Oh, yeah, I can
So
see it.
it's-
Thank you.
It's
Thank
here,
you. I
but we
see
can
it.
also add.
Yeah, cool. Carla, I know you had some things.
Oh, will we own the data? Or is it licensed? Do we have to pay an annual license
An annual license.
to access it? So once, if we were to end the contract with Illuminate, we would lose our access to the data?
Or could you archive it?
Or
We
would,
can, we should be able to archive it. At least the last system I worked on, but I can ask about that.
I'd be curious about that, whether you can download and archive it. Is
Because
it?
it's all coming, it's coming from us, like we will
No,
still
I
have the
know,
data.
but some companies, right?
Yeah, no, but I'm
You-
saying we'll still have the data. It's not just necessarily gonna look pretty.
Yeah, it's not, if you
Yeah, okay,
download it from the
okay.
data warehouse, it's not gonna look nice, but you have the individual ones, so
We
that
have
would be.
all of-
Yeah, I mean-
It's all flowing from us.
Yeah.
in Here, it's just putting
Yeah,
it
okay.
together.
So this like brochure from Illuminate talks about FastBridge and DNA. Those are
Yeah.
not items that we're purchasing. right?
FastBridge is something that we're currently using. It's a
Alright.
progress monitoring tool for students who are receiving intervention or have special are doing STI, special education services. So we're utilizing that, kind of lightly utilizing it right now. So we're doing a train the trainer on that currently. We were using Ames Web in the past, but we shifted to FastBridge. We were just having a lot of issues with Ames Web. So everyone's being trained in FastBridge currently.
Okay, so that's just another, that's a
It's
screening
product.
platform.
We actually use STAR for screening, but FastBridge does offer a screening, but we're gonna stay consistent. So for staff,
So what,
it's a little different on here. So when you look at it, so if you're on, like, let's say the class, this is Miller's classroom, you can kind of see there's the code for FastBridge over here. There's the DNA. We're currently not going to be utilizing DNA at this moment in time. We need to do a slow roll out of this for our staff. So we're looking at EduClimber, which is the yellow one.
Yep.
And then FastBridge, which is the darker blue. So if you look at the kind of how it's set up there, FastBridge is that progress monitoring piece. FastBridge on here, they also show it as your screener. We utilize STAR 3 times a year as our screener, or universal screener. FastBridge also has a universal screener and has progress monitoring piece. So it has both, but we're gonna continue to utilize STAR.
but
Until we dig
STAR
into it.
doesn't screen for SEL stuff, right?
No,
No.
so FastBridge has some screeners embedded in it. Some of them, they're called savers.
Yep.
Right? Some of them, like for our older students, they can take the screeners themselves, which would be really nice. And right, and I think we've talked about this before, sometimes students have a social emotional need, but we don't see it, right? And so that might be a really useful screening tool for us to give to all of our students. And I'm gonna be honest, I can't remember if it's 4th grade and up or 5th grade and up, to kind of give us a quick screening or dipstick into like who might be needing more and isn't like showing it through negative school behavior. And then for the younger students, the teachers could go through a screener. I'm gonna be super honest, I'm a little nervous about having the teachers go through that screener for every student in their classroom, and but that is a decision we have not sat down and talked about yet. So we need to kind of decide what will that look like for our younger kids.
So the $8,000 buys us all of this,
Yeah. The FastBridge.
but you're just focusing on EduClimber. And
EduClimber and the
FastBridge.
FastBridge for the progress monitoring, sorry, interventionists
got it.
and our special education.
And then it
teachers.
sounds like DNA, should you choose to use, that would be where you would put your, basically like surveys, right? You create some sort of,
You could do
surveys.
district surveys and all of that, so we could input all of that in there. Parent surveys, all of that could go in here eventually. eventually if we want. We're gonna go a little slow.
We were,
We're gonna go a little slow.
Andy and I have been doing exhaustive research as we sit here on the September 2022 data breach that Illuminate experienced.
Are you aware of that?
They had a massive data breach and they've been purchased by another company as a result of it.
Renaissance Star.
Well, the company
Renaissance.
purchased started before.
Renaissance
everything.
is start.
Renaissance is our star that we currently utilize.
Okay, so they do Star, Renaissance does Star. Yeah, it's just funny, like, oh, look at that, there was a big data breach. I don't know what the nature of the
From
breach is.
Renaissance or
No, it
Illuminate?
was.
Illuminate from last,
So we
What is
bought it
less
as,
than a year
we
ago?
bought it as Renaissance.
oh, okay,
So I don't know. This is the information they have on here, but my contract is the
with
Renaissance.
the Renaissance. Yeah, I'm maybe curious to see how it plays out. It'd be interesting to see what the kind of information is. Or you can call it.
Do you have anything, Skylar?
I don't.
Okay, I just am curious, question out loud, which I don't think you'd have an answer to yet, but if some of this data could be shared publicly, like once we're like, it's rolled out, people are using it, like, would it, I don't know, would there be a benefit to being transparent about our data, like how, some districts share their castle like data?
Yeah, the castle data.
Yep.
They have like
Data.
a dashboard, a
So
wellness
just,
dashboard.
yeah, like
Yeah.
thinking about whether some pieces of this might make sense to share out
Oh,
for
yeah.
the
Yeah.
public.
Yeah,
Oh,
Just
okay,
as a
cool.
bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
dashboard is such a great
Yeah.
idea.
It would just need to be screenshot, right?
Mhm.
So, because the issue is if anybody rolls across the screen.
Right,
then
like,
you
any
can drill, you
yeah.
can drill down,
Mhm.
so we would just screenshot it. But I think, this could be brought back to the board many times, right?
Mhm. So, thank you.
I-
Oh, Ben, you
Well,
have something else?
Well, with the data sharing, I guess I would, maybe if we put Y stash information up on our, like, already published information would probably be best. So like, we can link our school report card and then we can do the general data from Y stash. Like, I guess I'd be nervous posting data
Yeah. the report is out.
publicly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like already published data, maybe we can just put on them. I would be nervous about putting data on there that's not necessarily
We would
like
have
star
to-
data, I
sure,
wouldn't wanna
We
do
would have
that.
to select.
Yeah, so I would, I don't, anyone
would
can
just-
disagree with me, that's totally fine.
Well, our star data
Yeah.
is public.
No,
'cause it's,
yeah.
we're doing it on boards and sharing it out.
Oh, true, yeah, that is our, but on a dashboard I'm talking about, I guess I would stick with just Y stash and the school report card, but again, you guys can disagree with me if you want, but that,
We can have.
I would
Cross that bridge.
nervous about a
I mean, when
dashboard
we're
with
looking
other.
at our strategic planning
data.
goals and we're looking at, I mean, that's gonna be part of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, just show it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Thank you for starting this heavy lift. We look forward to hearing about it.
There's some really good videos too, so if you kind of scroll on there's some great videos on the
Oh,
site.
those, on the
And also-
website, okay.
also keep in mind if we have those like action steps that is public. And then people will know, oh, there's a problem, or not a problem, but there's an area
Yeah.
of improvement
We would
here.
wanna
So
share it.
I know we want to be public with all, but I would just stick with the data that's already public for now. And then internally use this for improvement.
I think we're noted.
Okay.
We'll move on to Jenica. Switch gears, it's okay, take a moment. Take a deep breath in honor of Wellness Day, which was really cute to observe, fun to observe.
No scatter plots. All right. So we did, I'm going to talk about students first. We did not send out a survey to all the students. We were feeling, at least, some of the members on the wellness team, that sending out that survey, students are feeling like they've been surveyed enough.
with DAP and what other
Well, with
surveys?
all different surveys that have been coming through, so then also the classroom teachers have been doing surveys within their classrooms. So what we ended up doing is actually pulling students and having one-on-one conversations with students.
Okay,
So that's kind of how we did this. We asked different questions. You don't have all the responses.
Okay. So you
But I'll
hold
share
21 students.
like, yeah, one-on-one in different grade levels, so pockets of students, to just get a dipstick as to kind of how they were feeling about Wellness Day. So kind of see how it was spread out across the different grade levels. We also, you can see the ratings of it, so kind of a mid rating, so 1 was, this was horrible, I don't want to ever do it again. And then 5 was, yeah, this was the bottom. So they kind of a mid choice on that. Kind of looking at the overall on the candor class itself, very similar results on that. So the first, or the second chart is on the activities, and the next one was on the HGE class itself. The important one I thought that was real important was, do you feel like adults, there's an adult staff member at Glen Hills that you can go to for questions? We have, about 60% of students felt they could have asked of the small group. Okay. I looked for-
that's what I was
What?
saying. I was like, Ben,
Sorry, I didn't,
what
I
is
was looking.
61.9% of 21 responses? 11?
It's gonna be 12
Oh,
or
19.
21
It's gonna be
responses.
13 or 12.
Sorry,
Oh.
sorry to derail the joke. I was just trying to,
No, I
I
know.
am curious. It's hard to do.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
12
like
or
12
13.
or
Okay,
something.
okay, got
And
it.
then I thought it was 13.
Thank you.
No, that's. the-
Oh, no,
that's a
no,
different
no, no,
that's a
no.
different one.
But it's the same.
It's the same
It's the same.
percentage.
How did you pick the students to pull?
I asked Taylor to pull a diverse group of students in the lunchroom. And I gave her some questions to kind of pull and have some conversations with the students. And then she documented.
So Taylor chose them.
And then looking at, before we switch over, I just wanted to share some trends from some of the comments. So some of the questions that we asked was, what did you like about the day? And overwhelmingly, it was the activities. So they love the swimming, they love the karate, the gym, the free time, the puzzles, the bowling. So pages of that. What did you not like about the day? Some of the kids did not like karate, some of the activities, the CPR class. So, I mean, it's hit or miss depending on the students with that. Then asked specifically about the candor course. What did they like about it? I was really surprised at the amount of students, not really surprised, but just that they learned a lot. A lot of them said that they learned a lot. And that on the computer, they felt prepared with doing it on the computer. One student stated that they liked that it was a professional that did it.
Oh,
some
my
of them-
Nick learned a lot.
Yeah,
He shared it all with me.
yeah.
It was very anatomical and
Yeah.
very precise, and I
And
was
they liked
very
that it was
impressed.
science.
I love the recounting of what Nick learned.
Yes.
Oh, have you heard the recounting?
Yeah, he told me,
Yes,
yes,
it
I loved
was.
A lot of them liked that
Very
it was
specific.
on Zoom and then they could be on the computer, which I thought more kids would want to have it in person. So that's what I was a little surprised about, that they liked the idea of it being on the computer. Then I asked what you did not like about the candor course. Too long, way too long. So they, a lot of students went to, a lot of them thought it was too long. Friends were being silly,
That's it.
a lot of silliness. And that they would rather have it, what we ended up doing was, they wanted us to split in a grade level into 3 groups instead of like keeping the 4. So some kids were in a class that they're normally not in. So then it was a larger class size. So then we had to utilize different spaces. So that was awkward for kids. They wanted it to be in their homeroom class. So they felt like they'd feel more comfortable with that homeroom class. So that's definitely a tweak that we would make for next year. And then also the comfort level for the teacher too, because utilizing somebody else's tech is somewhat difficult. I found, because, you know, like in the orchestra room, she had like special speakers plugged in, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm trying to unplug everything and not knowing how all that works, right? So those were a lot of the questions. So basically, you know, students acting silly and too long. And then also talking, you know, some of the next steps, you can kind of see it up at the very end of this, is really looking at getting a break in there, possibly piloting an online program. I'm going to go back to the staff stuff in a minute. So those are a couple of things that we can talk about. And then also they wanted to have more input on what are the choices for the activities that are happening. So they'd like more choice to be a part of some of that planning. And then when you look at the staff, they wanted more community involvement with it. So we had some community involvement, but seeing if we can seek out more community members to come in and possibly do some different activities for our students. So overall,
That's a nice idea.
yeah, our staff really enjoyed the day and would like to see more days planned throughout the year as well.
Did you ask staff about candor?
No, we did an overall
Oh.
question, but they had feedback
Okay.
around it, so shortened length of time. in homeroom. So I kind of talked about some of those things. Also doing it when the weather's warm, so we can get outside versus we had to be inside. It was just too cold and it was the best day. Yeah, and it was too much. So just doing it during that good weather time so that we can utilize, you know, the playground, we could do the track, we could do, you know, tennis and different activities outdoors. Were the big things with that. Again, breaks for the younger students, definitely needed a little bit of breaks. And then the big thing was the homeroom, staying within your homeroom. There was really no reason after doing it that we had to split into those groups because it's a Zoom. Like we could have actually done a bunch of small groups if we wanted to. So if students were feeling, you know, that they wanted to do their computer in the hallway, they could have. So that's something new learning for all of us as we went through this the first time. Another staff member suggested possibly 2 half days. And then getting students involved in the planning and brainstorming, just kind of having them sketch out what would you like to see for activities, and kind of charting that. So those were the big takeaways. So we need to get a team together. We're just kind of thinking, you know, possibly getting a calendar date on the calendar, and then we can start planning and getting some kids involved with some of this planning. I think it'll be super exciting. I said super excited. Exciting the school year, and then starting now, trying to get community supports in place, because it's a lot to manage that. I mean, Taylor did a ton of work calling places.
Oh, yeah,
And I didn't follow up, so yeah, more time would be good.
Yeah, and then we tried to work in like CPR training within it, and then,
Right.
so then 7th grade didn't get an opportunity to do some of the other things, so that was a little, you know, hard for them, so.
On the other hand, my
He was
7th
really
grader
good.
keeps offering to give me CPR.
Oh.
Puts his hands like this. It was apparently very compelling training. It's like, can I give you some
That's
chest
good.
compressions?
That's good.
I love Nick so much.
Mom, I'm chest compressing myself.
So for me, the big takeaways were that the student learned, like they learned things that they did not know about.
Yeah.
Which is so very important. And I think if we did some of this possibly in the fall, that might not be a bad thing. Right, going through the school year with that knowledge. And then also it opens up the door for some of those activities and whatnot. So getting that team together and start some of that planning. We would have to start some of the community stuff pre-summer. I think, because it takes a while to get all that organized.
So
It was a big event.
2 wellness days then, 2 half days? Is that like if you did it in the
We
fall
would have to
or?
talk, I would talk with the team.
Okay,
I
I
would
see.
make that decision, but I think the
And then
team would
you
have to
But
decide.
split
that.
You would do HGD learning at both? Or,
Yeah,
oh, okay,
yeah.
and it would be the candor,
It gives kids time to formulate questions for a second session,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I would like to see that. I don't know if they're
Yeah.
gonna do that. They also have like just an online interactive program where it's almost like a AI where they kind of work through it that way. A lot of the students did like that they could ask anonymous questions to the presenter. Some of them asked things that were not.
I did see a
Yeah.
kid, they picked up a class,
Yeah.
for not asking.
Yeah.
Great surprise.
Yeah.
There's some dysregulation, so I feel like
Yeah.
it's, the
But I
the
think
feedback
the
you got is
homeroom-
gonna address.
Yeah, but I think the homeroom would be really helpful.
Mhm.
So that's our next step, is really gathering that team together. I would be remiss if I didn't say a big thank you and a shout out to the Allied Arts team, the PE team, the world language team, the music team, that all worked diligently, and Taylor Dasso worked diligently to make this happen, and then the support of the entire staff of Glen Hills. And it was a full day, everyone was exhausted, and, but I think there's some really good opportunity with this for the future.
I wonder, so it's not like necessarily redundant work because we still have these wellness policies to create and a wellness committee, which is supposed to be composed of like teachers and community members and all of this. If you wanna think about how, like, if you're reaching out to community and you've got staff, you want to have this team to think about how these might support each other. Okay, thanks, Jenica. You're off the hook, I think. We are moving on to 4A, policy superintendent evaluation process.
So really, this is just, I was going through the pieces from LASB on this new we're using a superintendent evaluation system. $600 for 3 years, so I wouldn't even think it would be. But if it's something the board is interested in, I could just go ahead and actually order it. And then they would connect with us on setting up the professional development pieces. So it sounds like it's something we can get going pretty quickly if that's the direction. And I really support the WASB process. I think it's really nicely laid out, and I know you guys have mentioned it several times, so I just wanted to bring it back to see if it's something you want me to just officially get going.
I'm interested in it.
Same.
I think it's a great idea. I think we can use the support, kind of the structure and the
Seems like nominal,
pre-existing model.
Yeah.
seems like nominal investment
Yeah.
to assist us and
And we went to a presentation about it at that conference thing. And it seemed like a strong model with like, they have like a bifurcated, have you heard about it? There's like a summative element and a formative element. So it sort of echoes how we assess students as
And the
well. So-
evaluation itself is not the evaluation. The evaluation is the information that informs the discussion around goals. Like
Yeah, so-
collaborative discussion, so it's not that.
I
it's
thought
a
we,
nice model.
wrote your rubric,
The first year we did.
but just
And the
now, I thought
second
we
year,
added
Her goals.
the rubric, not,
It was tweaked maybe like a little bit.
so we're gonna throw it out and go with this one,
That would be the idea.
okay?
I think, we ought to talk about it. My only thing is that I think that whatever we do, we have to adapt it to our needs, so. Using that rubric, using service, I mean, what I don't ever want to do is follow an automatic process that takes, human element out of it, so. That being said, and speaking just as a history of the board, it's only been very recent that we've really taken evaluations with an eye towards accountability and just the seriousness of the task. And this board in the last few years has really been committed to that. And, we should continue with that. So I have less concern about what that process looks like than, actually finding a process that we are comfortable with. We've had a couple challenges trying to figure out how to make it work. So, for me, still having that process and and making it known and transparent.
Mhm.
You know, and also I think while it's board, you know, purview, fact matter is we need to really have Allison on board when we do stuff like this. And Allison has, I mean, from my perspective, Allison's been nothing but forthright and transparent in matters that I haven't always wanted to discuss, you know, publicly anyway, not because if there's any secrets out there, but because I think it takes a bit of ego actually, and confidence to just be able to talk about these things publicly. We have done that as a board, and so I'm just committed to working to do it right. So you guys went through this and you're comfortable with it. You know, it's something else to look at.
We can share the presentation, but if they do, it is not like a one size fits all. It's like they're gonna come and work with us to figure out what are the things that are most important to us and what do we wanna, like, you know, highlighting a few things and then they'll tell you the recommendations, but we can sort of add and supplement.
There was a video link too, and then like just some resources
Yeah.
on the website, different sample
think you-
rubrics.
And it'll be self-sustaining.
It also, the thing I like most about it is that it doesn't just ask for like artifacts from Allison. It asks for, like, our evaluation must be based on observations, like observations that you are able to label and you're also able to comment on all the areas. So it's not just like these numbers that have no context. So I think it'll be
Yeah, and
for
that-
everybody.
I was thinking about that when you just said a couple minutes ago. Keeping this little element in it. My experience, you know, in my 1 year on the board with this matrix rubric is that it's the opposite of human. It's just a very strange deconstruction of that evaluative process. And so I like the idea of moving to a more substantive conversation and dialogue as part of the evaluative process, you know, and away from a spreadsheet with dots on it.
So do we need to vote? I mean, are we all, there's consensus, right, for us to, I mean.
Yeah, I was
to
just
this-
wondering what we're doing with our old rubric, since we made one, but. It's
Well, it existed last year, we used it, it existed.
Well, no, I know, but
before.
we spent, I think it was February, writing down the new rubric, or editing
no,
the
no.
rubric.
Those were Allison's goals. And those goals we
We
can
were,
bring.
we even told her to throw out one part of the rubric and add different components at
There were,
different places.
yeah, you're right. there
Because
were
she
No, no,
pulled
we-
her goals from the rubric and we were
Yeah.
like, disregard these parts when you are making your goals. So all we've been talking about since evaluation are her goals. So those goals we can bring to WASB and say, this is where we're at. And we want to move these into this new process and maybe some of these don't make sense and we can reevaluate at that time.
I mean, yeah, no,
We're not throwing it away. It served a point and a
Yeah.
purpose. It's just we want to move it forward and do something that fits us better now.
okay,
And if it doesn't work, like everything, we can say this doesn't work and next year.
Oopsie
you know,
daisy.
Move on.
Try some, no, I'm just saying,
Try
it's
something
okay,
else.
it's okay to fail, guys, but we're not. I think this is gonna be a good move.
Look, honestly, we're not failing, and I'm doing this on 2 boards, and I see other different boards done it, and see how our board did it. And, you know, it's really about structure and bringing everyone into the process. And when I joined the board, I didn't feel like I was really a part of that, because it was just so loosey-goosey, and it was so amorphous. And, you know, we've really evolved, and we've got a great set of minds to be able to do that. And we've got, you know, these goals, which are great starting points.
I'm excited.
Yeah, great.
Super
So
excited.
we're gonna move on to the policy work and reflection and planning. In the interest of time, I think I'll say, I think this is something I asked to discuss around policy because we have done a lot of work, but a lot of work remains to be done. And the reason I wanted to bring it up as a board discussion is because I'm feeling very disjointed about all of the work and how it's come to be. With certain policies remaining to, you know, just, that is my overall sensation about how we've been doing things. I'm glad we are getting things done we need to get done, but I would like to see a more cohesive approach to policy work. I personally am interested in Neola, but I'm also interested in, I know there are other groups out there. And so I just wanted to like open this, have a conversation around how everyone else was feeling about the policy work and how we want to move it forward. And so I don't know if, so I just wanted to put that out there since I asked for us to talk about this, and that's why.
And I shared some information from the last time when we talked about Neola. Granted, it's a year old now, but just to give some general, like that chart with the comparisons. So my thinking was, obviously, I know this has been sort of a reoccurring conversation a little bit around that. You know, if you wanted me to bring somebody in to talk more about it, or just what you wanted next steps to be.
Am I the only one who feels this way? That's another good question. You know, like, I don't know, like, I don't want to, we can keep going as things are.
So, well, first of all, let me just say, we put a lot of hard work in it and then we got a lot of good out of it. And I think that we've also demonstrated the policies that we had, while some of them were good, a lot of it needed updated and there were a lot of blanks. So we've done a great job so far, but it really is tough and we're hoping we can further along with it. So I understand the concern, you know, that we have with trying to move things. I guess I have one quick question. Have you talked with other superintendents in the area who use Neola about their thoughts on it? Okay. So we use Neola over in Clay, and I don't usually check them in 2 minutes, but I don't usually like today in the carrots, but let me make one quick observation. And I promise. Our job, more than normally, our job as board members is policy. And what I think, and I think that Neola really does a very thorough job. At the time, I think we're daunted by, it's more expensive, it's more thorough. And we thought we could do the job ourselves. So there's that. I think that when it comes to Neola or any job that we do as a board, what we have to make sure is that we aren't just blindly accepting the policy regulations. And I think that regardless, we're going to end up doing a lot of what we do anyway, which is look at the policy and say, okay, this is what they're saying, and let's work with it. And I don't think this board's ever going to be passive in that process. So I think there's a lot of help with Neola. They probably have a lot of resources, and maybe we ought to get some other points of view. But I do just want to say we are kind of a board of individuals with different perspectives, and I know that we're going to look at things and ask questions anyways. So my only hesitance about trying something different is, are we really going to save us more time if we're still approaching it the same way? We may.
I think we would save Allison time.
What?
Don't you feel like Allison has put in just an unholy amount of time? into
Yeah,
this work? And if you hired a company like Neola, that's where you would see the time saving for Allison's hours.
So would the difference essentially be, and like, so right now I've got a WASB template and we're going through that and making the changes and adjusting for, like, would Neola give us a more finished product to start with as a board? Like, I don't even know what the exact, you know what I
so
mean, difference would be.
having not had Neola from the start, I can tell you that what happened in the Clay is on a rolling basis, they give lots of updates along with the rationale. And usually their update to policy seem to be akin to state procedures. But they do redline differences. So there are some, it is easy to read. It is all, I mean, we get it all electronically. I am happy to share, what public content that there is, to kind of show how we get these things. But from the starting point, I don't know what
That's
we
what
have.
I'm wondering, yeah, like, so
It'd be good to have
these are
them.
all need to be
And
redone.
s-
How does
well,
that
and
look?
but that's a question for Neola, which is,
Yeah.
look, we've done this.
Yeah.
We have all of these that are still
Mhm.
there. We have all these that we just added or modified. How would you tell us, to pick up from there? What would you do? I would want that answer.
Mhm.
I think that we should do it with our policy meetings, so we have separate policy meetings. I think possibly we should all come, like, we should do maybe 5 at a time or 10 at a time. But we come to the meeting, we have to email Allison our suggestions for the policy, so if we want to rewrite this, like, I don't know, number 333, right? We want to rewrite it, well, we rewrite it, we give it to Allison, she gets our feedback on it, or we say it's all good, then we come to the meeting with her draft, and then we can talk about it. So, but we would have to give her at least 2 weeks, you know, in advance or something like that.
If we only do 5 policies per month, how long would it take us to get through everything?
Well, I
That's the
mean, we
problem,
can do a few
right?
more.
There's just so much that we have to get through.
Well, that, and to me, the disjointedness of all of this is that we're creating policies in a vacuum and then creating policies weeks before, months later, and not necessarily understanding how they relate to each other and not understanding how they uphold our mission, vision, you know, strategic planning, which won't be in place at that time. So I feel like there's not, I could look at every single policy we've worked on and it wouldn't necessarily like scream Glendale-River Hills District to me like a cohesive thing, which maybe that's an unreasonable expectation. I don't know. But I think capacity in terms of prepping for that, think about, I spent, I want to say 13 hours prepping for one policy session throughout the week. Because I read every single policy, I looked up statutes, like I would, like that work was a lot of work to like, and I
Me
don't
too.
mind.
Right, I mean, we
Yeah,
each
and
just,
so, and then
yeah.
Allison
Gonna
spent
take
so many
all 4
hours taking
versions
all of
and
our.
put it into one.
And
I can't
then
even
Allison
imagine
is
that.
uploading those into board docs and Neola puts together a policy binder for you when they are done. They upload that stuff to board docs. They take some of that work out, which to me gets all of the people, all of us able to do more of what we should be doing, like just using our time more efficiently, which is, yeah, I don't wanna, yes, I wanna be able to trust that Neola is telling us the statutes, and yes, I, as Andy pointed out, I will still look at these with a critical eye. That's not gonna change, but so that's my only pushback on, we can do this ourselves. I think we're all intelligent enough to do it ourselves. I don't think that I personally have 15 hours a month to dedicate to, you know, rewriting, and maybe 5 policies is less than, but so for me, capacity is gonna be a problem because I have to be prepared for that kind of work, and the prep time that takes to do it diligently is immense.
So it looks like the mandatory policies, that there's 13 of them. So I think that would be
So we,
manageable.
No, they went through all of our policies and
Yeah, we
basically
got-
said all of these need.
it's
need
linked
to
in
be
there, the
checked.
quick check. Then,
Yeah.
so we got through board governance in table 1 and 2. The entire rest of that document still has to be done. It's basically every other policy.
Yeah.
And the
Right,
last
but I'm saying
table is just, oh, these are more than 5 years old, but you still need to update them all.
Yeah, but I'm saying with the mandatory ones, we could get those done.
We did the
we already
mandatory.
did
We
that.
did
Well-
table 1 and 2,
Okay,
but that took us 4 months.
Could I suggest that we just have a presentation from Neola to
Yeah.
learn more?
Yeah, and I liked your question a lot, Andy, like a conversation with him to say, so here's what we've done. How do we pick up from here? How does that look to take this massive amount of work?
Once we're set, it'll end up being a rolling basis,
And-
you know, because there will be those updates, either the law will change or someone will go through and say, hey, why don't you do this, da, da, da. It's never all gonna be all at once,
Right.
it's always a continuing process. So I mean, I think we have to have some, you know, expectations, not gonna be that fuller.
Right.
But, you know, I like to get Neil in here, let's ask some questions.
Cause that's the
other
thought,
groups
so I'm
too.
sorry.
No, I'm sorry, no, maybe we could look at, I've seen some other, like, there's Aspen group, or there's some, you know. some-
I have difficulty, and again, I can be convinced otherwise, or maybe I don't need to, because, you know, there's
No,
gonna be
tell us
5
how
of
to
us.
convince you. Tell us.
No, there's 5 of us, so I don't need to be convinced. But my issue is we keep on hiring these outside consultants to do, you know, our internal work. And like, we do have to kind of choose where we're putting our funds carefully, and this might be a good place to put our funds, but, you know, the most impactful thing we do in this school is teach. So we, you know, to pay someone, you know, like some consultants get, you know, $5,000 to make a presentation to the board, you know, it's like, and I don't, that's just a made up number, I don't actually know. But, you know, I just think, we do have to take a step back and look at, hey, where do we want our funding to go? And if we need our funding to go to this, okay, that's fine. But I want a compelling argument for that.
Do you have 13 hour? I mean, like, how much time did you spend prepping for our policy workshops?
A few hours, because I came with prepared changes to what I thought was necessary. Other things I said, yeah, that's fine. But no, with the things where I saw I needed to make, or I wanted to make changes, I did, and I highlighted them.
I
So-
would say to you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I've thought through this too, because the money goes out, right? But what leads me to think we need an outside consultant on this in particular is that policy is foundational to protecting the school district. It's a liability issue. If you don't have solid policies, you're just opening yourself up for that next lawsuit and the next lawsuit and the next lawsuit. And you have to get it together. We didn't get through enough in this past year. We don't have solid policies on wellness. We don't have solid policies on school lunch and school. I mean, we have some basic stuff where,
Well, we do though, because we didn't, throw policies away.
no, I know,
Right,
but they're
but
not
they're
updated, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, to me, it's risk assessment. I've only been on the board a year, but I look at the mess of our policies and I'm like, I don't even know. If I have an issue with the school district, I don't know that I can go to a spot on our website, find a policy that's relevant to the question I might have as a parent, understand my rights, understand what challenges I might bring, just understand and know what to do. That's a huge potential cost outlay. To me, it's like a no-brainer with my lawyer hat on, that we pay someone to help us get this done quick, straighten this up, and there's this potential pool of money. I mean, it's always gonna be hypothetical that we're protecting in our fist. Because otherwise, we just don't know what's gonna come up. And we don't know if our policies are up to date. We don't know if they're right.
I was just gonna say to your point, Brian, there's a lot of work that we have to do right now, but it's not gonna be reoccurring every single year. So we have somebody come in and do a strategic plan with us. It's a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, and then we're updating it. Like, it's not like every year we're hiring consultants to
And
do a
this kinda
strategic plan. Or
sorry.
the policy work, like you were saying, it becomes then updating. And
Can we
keeping
pause
things
on
current.
just strategic plan? I don't want to go into strategic planning or the topic of
Sorry,
consultants.
I just wanted to say like,
I know what you're
Well,
saying,
are
but I
not
don't.
gonna
I'm talking about consultants in the terms of what we're
Of
doing
this,
now.
okay, yeah,
So,
yes.
okay.
but then if we're going to do this, we should come up with a budget for, like maybe we want to hire a consultant in November. If we have a budget where we say, we can spend a max of this much on consultants per year, we might have to say no. Depending on the context, and sometimes maybe you have to go over budget some years because you need to get, but like, I think we should have a number in our heads where we're willing to spend this much on consultants per year, because sometimes that can get, to be a lot. And so I'm just mentioning this because this particular consulting company might be, a bit more than.
yeah, and I have a superintendent's budget, so the conversation Lindsay and I had very recently was, what is my budget? Okay, so I know I have 3 surveys that I want to do every single year. So I know I have strategic plan, so I know I have policy. So we do have those conversations to see what can fit. So it's not just like.
Okay, Andy, and then I
Because
think
you're right.
Andy.
The board also has a budget, and this is really primarily helpful to the one thing. The other thing is, I have nothing but the highest confidence in this board. I think that, we are a very strong board. I think that some of our members are newer, and we have to play a board continuity down the road anyway. And to the extent that we can provide some simplified, the process that concerns that have been raised here are valid, and we ought to look into that. That's all I want to say, but I do want to stress that it's not that we don't know what we're doing, it's not that we're not intelligent, it's not that we're mature, it's that we're relatively young board in this current board. And we should be able to do something to give us that leg up, to just get some of these things out of the way. So, if that's, if it's something else, whatever it is, but I hear, I've gone through this, in the past, and these are things we should have done a long time ago to get us to a different place. And, you know, I know, I have every confidence that we'll be able to do that. I definitely just want to push this plan forward, so please bring you in.
For discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good discussion's fine.
We can continue, yeah, it's just a discussion, and if, I think it sounds like there's some consensus in just talking more and hearing more from Neola, so let's get that on an agenda, please. And we can move on to student ambassadors,
So this
which
is
is
really
also a discussion item.
super quick, because it's just something that I'll look into if the board is interested, but we've talked a lot about student voice and wanting to increase student voice. And there are several districts that have a student ambassador at each board meeting. If the board is interested, I would do some more research around like how that person's chosen and just the process for that. Usually it's high school. So, you know, we'd also have, I'm thinking 8th grade, but we'd have, if the board thinks we want to change, you know, go in lower grade levels, that's fine too. But I just wanted to see if there was interest in it before I did some more research around how it would look.
Totally interested. I would love to see a 3rd grade ambassador and an 8th grade ambassador so that both schools are represented,
Buddies.
right? And they could
Kids, I
come
like
and partner and then the 8th grader could mentor the 3rd grader.
I like that.
For me, I would like to see applications to the board and have the board select rather than have administrators choose. I think it creates more of a sense of fairness and more feeling of like what it takes to be on the board. And I think you will find kids who are interested in the process. So, you know, submit an application of interest to the board. We can review them. We can interview students and choose an ambassador from each school. That's what I mean, just sitting here thinking off the top of my head.
Like
month or
one
for
who
the
would be a
year?
regular ambassador or versus like having a different
Different one from
ambassador
each.
every month?
Because I
I was
was
thinking
originally
an
thinking
annual.
a different each
Well-
month.
Oh, different each month.
That's what she
But-
Or at least
suggested.
maybe
But
every
again, I don't
semester. I think rotating is good.
Trimester.
But you
maybe?
could still have the application period at the beginning of the year then. We
To
could
see
still
it.
choose all the ambassadors, right?
True, and then assign them each to a different.
Just something to think about, you know, when you think about who that filter is. You know, I just think about equity and access and what students might be comfortable with, you know, who they're connected to in schoolhouses. If you take it out of the schoolhouses and bring it to the board for applications, creates the potential for some different voices being heard. Just, I mean, I don't know if it's the right idea. It's just what I thought, you know, and maybe it's too much work for us, but I don't know. You know, I would love to hear from students who want to be ambassadors to the board. I think that would be very cool.
Right. Just one thing, moving on to board candidate appointment process.
Speaking of.
You're so bad.
So I attached a, for some reason, I don't know why I laid out a top of a potential process. So our policy is,
So
our policy is pretty vague. It
Yeah.
just says they have to come before the board. They have to, you know, have their paperwork done, and they just tell you why they want to be on the board and they can ask questions.
Right.
So having just observed a couple processes in a couple of the districts, I threw out some recommended process that we could use. Right now, we have, I think, 3, maybe, so somebody must just email me tonight. So we've got some interest, let's just say, and a lot of people, about 8 or 9 people have asked for paperwork, so we could potentially end up with 2 rounds, depending on who actually turns in the paperwork. But the process is just basically, they do that first piece where they come forward, they give you their statement of why they think they would be a good ad or fit for our school board. And then I started an interview bank of questions. Did I put that in the update?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put it in the update again. I may or may not have used ChatGPT to come up with the first list of questions, but they were pretty good just to get you guys thinking. And then just add any questions and then we could decide which questions we want to use. But the thought is that each board member would ask a question in round 1. And then we would do a secret ballot, sort of like a forced choice vote where we would rank depending on the number of candidates. Those that came out across the board at the top would then move on to round 2, do the process again, and then, yeah, so.
I'm a big fan of ranked choice as
Mhm.
opposed to number of votes,
Mhm.
because I think you can get suboptimal results with counting number of votes instead of ranked choice.
And there's only 4.
Just to be clear though, it's when we secret ballot.
No, it would be.
Secret.
I don't know how you can do that.
How you can do it.
Because we would each write down,
Like
after we
first or
interview all the
second choice,
candidates,
first
we'd
choice,
write down
second
our
choice.
ranking. And then we're gonna give
Then
it
I'll
to
take them
Allison.
all.
But we're selecting someone for the board. Why would we have our votes? I mean,
You think it
That's
has
what
to
our
be
policy
public?
says. No, that's what our policy says.
our policy says that.
Yes, and that's what, that was legally, that
It's
was
pretty typical.
legally approved.
Well, it says that
That's
they
what I'm
leave the room.
Yeah, so they would leave.
No, no,
them-
no, this is our policy, like, that's all it says about, unless we approve using roll call. So you could make a motion to do it by roll call.
Oh, I see what
or
you're saying.
voice
So if they
vote.
leave the room, but then you can't really rank them.
Signed written ballots. Are
Yeah.
you
You know
thinking
what I
they have
mean?
to be public?
No.
No,
Yeah,
they're
well,
not.
Well, we didn't do it public in 2021. We did it via Google Sheet, didn't we?
It was secret, right?
Yeah,
So
You're
you
talking
could,
about
I mean,
like
it
election,
could
like of
be,
officers?
yeah, when we voted for
Yeah, but that
officers.
was
Oh.
officers, that wasn't
That,
selecting a person.
oh,
and we could
yeah.
do this Google sheet. I mean, I just figured it was quick if, you're just ranking them and I'm looking at.
Oh,
them.
you're trying to say that our secret ballots have to be like public?
That everyone needs to know how we're voting each
I
time?
don't think so.
No, it says
And the
we
town was said here,
specifically,
doesn't, where does it say secret?
It doesn't say
It said
secret.
unless you vote otherwise, it's.
It says a
secret ballot.
majority board approves the use of
Okay,
roll call.
here's our- here's policy 133.
Signed
Yeah,
written
okay, so number 5.
Number 5, unless majority of the board approves the use of
Use of
roll
roll
call
call.
or voice vote.
Oh,
So you have to
signed
vote-
written
It's by
ballots.
signed
I'm
written
sorry,
ballots.
we're
It's public
keeping-
record.
I got you.
So-
And it should
But
be.
does that mean it's public record just because they're signed written ballots? I mean, it's secret ballot, it's not.
I guess that's how I understood it. Can we just clarify with, legal counsel? Would that, can we just get clarity?
Because
on
I
that?
read it as unless you guys vote to make it a roll call or voice vote, then it's going to be a ballot.
A written ballot.
Signed written ballots. It doesn't say that it has to be either
Yeah,
secret
secret or
or,
public.
or public.
Let's clarify
Okay.
that.
I think that, I mean, and I'll just say, I'll advocate to make it public. I think that, and by the way, I mean, whether or not we choose each candidate or not, I'm not sure that that's what matters. I think the only time we should really choose candidates is, when one candidate's being interviewed.
Yeah.
Then the other candidates, should be able to get an advantage by listening to what, the other
Right.
candidate says. That I think, just question them for the purpose of, the interview. I think that's a process that makes sense, but
So
You-
when you're
okay.
doing like the ballots and we're counting all that up, you're just saying they should still be sitting in the room.
I think that you would,
Well, and it would be recorded.
Are you saying that everyone should know how each of us votes for each round?
I don't know how you can do a secret vote.
Well, we'll clarify
Because
that
after the
point.
first, I mean, for the second round, you'd have to, no, I
They
think you
wouldn't.
could for both rounds, they wouldn't have to know
Well,
how you
technically-
specifically voted.
technically, you could make it, if we did the ranked choice, it would be signed and written, and we could potentially make it public, right?
Mhm. I
So-
mean, if someone does no record
It's- I
request
don't know.
anyways, I mean, we're gonna have signed
We would just-
ballots.
Yeah, we would just
Let
have
me
to.
clarify, I don't think I've ever.
Okay, but then
seen-
Andy, I heard you saying you
Everything.
have an issue with candidates leaving the room while we
So
vote.
they-
So we would
No,
bring all the.
they should leave, not, well, yeah, I mean,
So when
That's
you're
what I thought I
voting,
heard
you
you
stand.
say.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and that's fine, because
Yeah,
this is just,
that's
these are
fine.
just
Have you done
Allison's
this
suggestions.
previously?
I have been,
How
you
did
know
you
what?
guys do it? It was
So
on
I've
this
done
policy.
this for Glendale once with one candidate.
Oh,
Oh, there was no competition, you mean?
No, because that's all that, we mustered up, and that was when
That's a
Lindsay
good
Rock
sign
Forum
for
was
us
selected.
that people wanna sit with us.
And I got a lot of flack for no good, I mean, the process itself was fine, but we didn't have multiple candidates.
Yeah.
I have, however, gone through this process when I ran for alderman, when I applied to be alderman way back in the day. And my recollection then was similar to what I'm kind of espousing now, which is the interviews were private, the votes were public.
How did they do the votes?
It was, I think it was just, hand raising, actually.
But it wouldn't have been rank voting then.
It wouldn't have,
Yeah,
right.
just been-
so I watched, the one I recently watched was a Little Doc. And they just ranked them, and then it came out, you know what I mean, obviously, like, how many people picked this from number 1, number 2, number 3, and that determined who went to the next.
Or is it
round.
like golf with the lowest score?
I
or
actually
something
like
like
the idea of ranking candidates. The way that they did it in Glendale was, hold on, it was fixed back in the day. I mean, they said, oh, there'll be multiple rounds. Apparently, they used to do this, and there'd be multiple rounds, right? So you do one round, you argue about it, you have your discussion, etc. And then, so maybe this is, you know, what you do, you rank the candidates. I don't know, I mean, we need some guidance on it. I mean,
Do you think you could, maybe Wasby or the lawyer can tell us
Yeah, I
whether
can
it has
ask
to
Bob
be,
over.
whether it can be secret ballot or
I can-
whether it has to be.
I've seen it secret ballot. I would assume that those boards were not breaking in.
I don't like secret
But I'll
ballots.
ask Bob.
Well, you can make a motion to, right, to do voice vote or roll call, or to make them not secret.
But then, I mean, you can't.
Well,
voice
it's fine.
vote, right?
Well, you
Let's-
You know what I mean? That would be
Say it
like
louder. Say it
one,
louder.
2, 3.
I guess
4.
we could announce our ranking.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can
that
announce your
would be-
ranking.
But we
Yeah,
only
it's
have
just
this
so
selected
awkward.
for
That is
60 days,
awkward.
right? So
A
the
lot of
thing
things
is
are
that
awkward.
we have a meeting coming up in May.
Well, May 17th.
We're good with
is when
awkward,
right? We're interviewing on the 17th.
So we're gonna do that at, okay, on May 17th. We
Are we
interview-
voting?
And that's when we're gonna vote.
Yeah, you would do it
We're
all,
voting
but
on
I
the
still
second.
think it can be secret ballot. I mean, obviously, by the
regardless.
time you get to the second round, you're gonna be saying,
But my other question is, then on May 17th, we'll also have to agree about the process. So,
By then, before then.
well, we can't do
Yeah,
it
'cause this
outside.
isn't-
of-
but is this like,
We have to do it in a meeting.
is this something you have to
Something
actually?
tells me we should have an early meeting next.
But
Yeah, if you have a lot.
We have a lot to do
I think-
next, or 2 weeks from now. So we should
We
probably.
can talk about that.
this is a fair point. We can do it as a special meeting.
Okay, could we agree to this process with,
I'll stay in the room.
as it is, once we get, like,
Mhm.
with the caveat that, like, so the process overall, aside from whether the vote has to be secret or not, and whether you can make the motion to make it, right, like,
Mhm.
if we have clarity on that piece and we just call it a written signed ballot for now, not a
Mhm,
secret ballot. Which, well, this is just discussion, it's not asking us for any action.
I didn't know if you had to vote on this.
I
or
don't know if
you
we
could
do, we
agree
just
on
have
the
to, we just need a
process.
process that falls in line
That's
with
what
our
I was
Questions
thinking.
we
policy.
have to vote on, because we'd have to get the same question to everyone. And
So,
timing.
but that could be a
Did
Google
we
doc
vote
where you
on,
each
like,
just
questions
pick.
for strategic, for when we were interviewing superintendents? We didn't vote, we went through the process with the consultant.
Yeah, but I mean, if we have,
They
say
took our-
and 8 people want to, be on the board, don't we want to have this question lined?
Yeah, so my thought was if everybody adds questions that they like, then you just pick the 2 that you want to.
Yeah, but shouldn't it be standardized?
Mhm. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
pick the
So
2 you
you would-
want, you pick the 2 you want,
So
Carl
we
picks
can't have
2.
23
and then-
questions that everyone puts in here, then have,
Once you guys pick the 2 you each want, I'll say, here's your questions.
so we have to do that at the next meeting.
But you
Can't we
wouldn't
just
have
do that in
to,
Google Doc?
Can you clarify this with our legal counsel?
Yeah, I was just thinking we could just, if there's a bank of questions, and email it out to you guys and say, pick the 2 you want to ask.
Oh,
That
okay.
creates our
Like,
questions.
I
consistently
think
ask them.
Allison's suggesting we're each gonna pick our own questions. We don't need each
Oh,
other's votes on
essentially,
that, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You
that's
just
what I
wanna
was
be
thinking.
sure you ask
The
the
same
same question.
ones, which is what
Oh,
Andy is
yeah.
saying, that every candidate gets the same question.
Like, so if I ask
Yeah.
the first candidate, what color are your socks? That's my question for every candidate who walks through.
Well, if you change your mind,
I can't,
Can't.
right? You're all here.
nothing says
You
you can't.
just said that, Andy. that
Well,
you
we're
can't.
trying to agree to that process.
Yes, they have
And
to
then-
Wait, so I guess this all depends on how
Are you
many.
scared, Katie?
Oh, I just realized.
We have
How
rainbow
many?
socks.
It depends, this discussion kind of depends on how many, because if it's only like 3 people,
Right, we
we
might
could have a
not-
public one where we vote and the
Right,
person
we're
with
not
the
gonna have a
lowest
second
number
round.
of, where
Mhm.
we know in that first
Mhm.
round, no one's gonna win. Even if they get 3 votes, we would just knock out the person with the
Yeah.
knock out, but we would eliminate the person with the least number of votes. And then we would
So if there
then
was no
do head to head or
consistency,
2.
like nobody agreed, so there were 3 people and nobody agreed in the top 2, then we would have to maybe go like back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I think that's actually what the.
Yeah.
That's what the
And
policy
it gives like
says, right?
another 60 days. or
So, but
something.
how many people do we actually have? So can you
3
say that?
right now. Sure.
3
Like
for
8
sure.
or 9
Somebody
people
just
have
emailed
applied.
me tonight though, so there's 4.
Um,
For sure, but then there are like 4 or 5 people that asked for paperwork.
Because with 4, that, I mean, ranked choice isn't really gonna help.
For the
Right.
version 8.
But it, I mean,
Well, I guess it
good,
could,
so if you
it
have,
could, yeah,
everybody had the same, like there's a person that landed in everybody's top 2, right, that tells us.
Uh,
So yeah,
okay,
but you're right,
maybe.
it's gonna depend on the
So
number.
if there were like 10, then it's like, okay, let's take the top 4 and then that's a public vote or something like that.
Right,
you
and
know?
round 2.
So in this,
Yeah.
oh man, and in this process, there's really no board discussion. It's all
So I'll just.
question,
Okay.
interview, vote, question, interview, vote, which is a little bit like our superintendent.
We had,
I mean, toward, then you, right, but like, discussion was at the end, like, there's no discussion in here, there's no. No, I know, but I don't think we're gonna land on this tonight is my problem, so.
But do you think there's do you need a spot for discussion? Which would be a reason for them to walk out of the room when you're voting if you're gonna talk about it.
I don't know.
Are we allowed to have public discussion? I don't know what the
Oh, I don't know.
law is. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, because then would you have to go into
So,
like closed?
how
for
do
that?
you-
I don't
okay.
know.
Yeah,
So we're gonna get clarity from legal counsel around this.
I'll ask
We
about
may have to
discussion.
have like a 15-minute special meeting to just, or I don't, like,
Yeah,
what would you suggest for us to
We could do like
solidify
a
this
Zoom.
process? Because we should let people also know what the process is for their,
so like I'll get some of these questions answered.
we-
Share with you
Because-
guys,
and
then
if we
can
don't
decide
have to
if
vote,
we
then we can somehow, like,
Maybe we could do like a 15 or 20-minute Zoom. next
Yeah.
week.
okay,
This is pretty important.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
it might be worth just all getting together.
Yeah, no, I think we need
So-
to do the 15-minute.
Okay,
Zoom,
so
yeah.
if we have questions that you want her to
30
talk.
minutes Zoom.
Oh, 30.
Yeah, like 15, right.
30 minutes, yeah. You're right, 30 minutes.
Double the
Uh-huh.
time.
Okay, do we need to
Okay.
decide that now, while we're all here with
It might
calendars?
be.
Oh,
easier.
yeah,
Let's just do it. Apologies to anybody.
No worries, this is important for us too, so.
What, you guys want to do like 10 or 11?
I could do
I like
both
both
of
of
those.
those.
Does it need to be? I don't know.
What time, Ben, do you? 'cause you
I
don't
can
know.
do any time after 4. I could even do exactly at 4, but then I'd be on my phone. Or I could actually bring my laptop too.
I have to pick my son up, so 4 is always,
Like 4:30.
4:30 is always better for me.
The 10th at 4:30.
I think I could do the 10th at 4:30.
You want to do the 11th just to be safe? You know?
What?
You want to do
Like
the
the
11th just to
11th.
be safe?
I think I think the 11th for some reason seems.
Okay to you?
Can you do
So,
4:30?
Andy, can you do both the 10th and 11th at 4:30?
Okay, what?
Can you
The
do the
11th
10th
at-
and 11th at 4:30? So Taylor can just double check.
Well, 4:30 still need to be a little bit tight, but I'm
I can do it later
checking with
too.
my secretary, but it's possible. Just for some reason, May 10th sticking out in my craw. And May 11th, so far seems okay. Unless you don't have,
All right, I'm gonna do it 10th.
Technically, meeting.
Okay, for the 11th at
Then you guys just-
4:30 and
Or
put it
later.
on your calendar now.
The
And I have
10th at what?
30 minutes.
May
11th.
Because
The
I'm going
11th
to
at
math
4:30.
Literacy night at
Great,
work with-
perfect, 30
Wait.
minutes.
What's a
Wait.
literacy
wait,
night?
wait.
Could you include in your update if you're able to talk to Dan before?
Mhm.
And so if we have any additional questions, we can ask them. before that.
What's the Parkway literacy night?
Family math and literacy, like in a. Right?
Yeah,
Like family literacy.
5:30 to 7 on the 11th.
Okay, thank you for being
Wait,
here.
don't go, I mean, I'm really just trying to confirm they don't have to be
Okay.
another
It's a
district.
tentative hold.
Yeah, I can always move it.
All
Okay,
right.
we are moving on.
Just let me know.
I hope
Yeah,
they
we
do
can.
it.
Or we can send it to go if we can, if you can.
Okay.
I'm also taking a wild stab at the dark here. Okay, athletic director position. This is discussion information as well.
So this is just to let you guys know, that we created a job description, we'll be posting the position internally and running interviews, so it's just giving you an update on that. Since Mr. Birmingham is retiring, we're looking at, there'll be one athletic director position for the district again, like it was before, and then a separate posting for YAC coordinator, which will be a stipend position. Mike did both, but that seemed like a lot, so we're hoping we can do that.
Does anybody have questions about the athletic
No,
director?
I do not.
The salary?
Salary.
Like 8,000.
I think it was good.
Are we gonna post, do you post a salary or salary range for the job? No?
It's just a
Is it-
stipend, right?
Yeah.
Is that why it's only internal?
I guess I did have a question.
Is that normal?
We're gonna post it internally just because of, because it's a stipend position, so usually it's like a current staff member It gets that stipend, you wouldn't normally have somebody from the outside, just, you know what I mean?
Is
coming
it
first.
full-time, part-time?
A few hours.
But it's, I mean, that job description is pretty intense.
It's long.
Yeah, he put everything in there for us.
He did- oh.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
Yeah, we worked
Okay.
with Mike on it.
my one.
We have some internal interest already,
Great.
so people are kind of waiting.
Okay, I would ask if you might want to add something around tracking demographic data for engagement, since we've
Is
talked
that
about,
not-
it's
I thought
not in
that was
there. I mean, it's like ensure engagement, but I would be very direct about like that data gathering is,
That's a
There was.
fantastic idea.
but I just,
Maybe it's not updated,
That's a
Lindsay and I
data
talked about it.
Yeah.
great, so then the athletic director, whoever that is, should be on, right, that would be the.
To come from my, yeah.
So,
from my.
You know, one thing that.
Oh, like
you know
who's
what?
participating.
Oh,
in
I
what.
see what you're
Parents should
saying.
sign up
It's
and
not
I
a
see.
special.
And that's one of those
For the
things that
clubs.
Lindsay does have to report out. I think we tried to capture it and develop communicate with student participation, but that's not, I thought we put it in here
I would-
explicitly.
No, I think you try, I see ensure engagement and equitable access for all students is bold. So I could see it, but I would just maybe lay it
Yeah,
out.
no, and
But
it's something that.
ensure
that-
tracking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
that's
gonna
all.
be bringing it to a summer town meeting too,
Okay,
and sharing out this year's data.
okay.
I would like to just address one aspect of it, which is I had not been convinced historically that the salary that one has gotten, certainly during the pandemic, there were some other issues, although, yeah, that's water under the bridge. I'm not convinced that, salaries really go for what those duties are. And I realized that you did go to, some great length here on the job description, and I think it's accurate, but I just don't know if it captures how often someone's really going to need to be here, because some of the stuff, by the way, I mean, facility space schedule and layout, some of it I feel like maybe can be absorbed by maintenance anyways. But I just really don't have a sense for ultimately is how much of this was being performed by the current athletic director, recruit and place coaches for athletic programs, isn't that supposed to be us, for example?
I watched him.
Who's gonna
recruit
coach
people.
volleyball or?
I didn't know that,
Yeah,
if that's the case, and that's fine.
Yeah, he did, she did.
Yeah.
Evaluating coaches, I didn't know any of these things were happening.
I guess to your point though, we did add a co-athletic director.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna just have one. So how is that, like, what is the? Is the
So,
job
basi-
less
just to-
or?
So we
Taking away.
added the co-athletic director because we added clubs and extracurriculars at Parkway and we realized we did not need that person to
Okay,
do it.
okay.
So
got
it just really was
Okay.
like, because we were adding that at Parkway,
Okay, cool.
so we gave it
Oh,
a
yeah,
shot and
sorry.
then we realized it wasn't really.
Okay,
And Mike agreed.
Last week.
anyone else? Okay, I see it. We're gonna move on. If that's okay. The next item is just a simple reminder to board members who might not be equity committee chairs or on the committee is that the district equity lens and the district equity non-negotiables are in what we've shared is their draft form, what the committee has come up with after getting feedback and revising. And this is what we will be bringing to you guys well, not us, committee members, will be bringing to you guys in a couple weeks. And so I just wanted to say, hey, start taking looks at them. If you have questions or feedback, you could even give it to us now. I'm open to it. And yeah, just to keep it on your radar. That was really the only point of having this on here. Yeah, got it? Cool. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, voice vote?
Aye.
Aye, thank you, everybody.
Okay, 2:15.